Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe if you love powerful HFY stories where humanity doesn't vanish quietly, but rises from the ashes with purpose. On this channel, we tell tales where strength comes from loss, and nightmares are born from silence. Now, let me tell you how I became theirs. They burned my world. Not because we attacked them. Not because we posed a threat. We were farmers, teachers, families, a peaceful colony tucked into the corner of nowhere. But that didn't stop them. One day the sky opened, their ships came down, and they didn't speak, they fired. In 1 hour, my home was ash, my parents, my brother, my wife gone. But I didn't die. And that was their mistake, because they thought I was finished. But what they created in the smoke and ruin, what crawled out of the fire with a shattered arm and burning eyes, it was something they'll never understand. Now I move in the dark, and I'm not hunting for justice. I'm here to make sure they remember. You always think you'll get a warning, a siren, a message, something in the sky. We got nothing. No alarms, no defense protocols, no distant echoes of war. Just a quiet morning like any other. I was hauling water from the east well, same as I did every week. The sun was just over the ridgeline, warm enough to feel good on your skin, cool enough to keep the dust low. People were out, laughing, working, living, and then the sky turned red, not from fire. Not yet, it was their engines, so many of them that they blocked out the upper atmosphere. Black hulls shaped like daggers, thousands of them. No formation, no hesitation, just a slow descent, like they'd already decided we didn't matter. Remember standing there, bucket in hand, staring up as the first ship broke through the clouds. It didn't scan, it didn't land, it didn't even hover. It just fired. I heard the scream of plasma before I saw the light. The schoolhouse. Gone. Vaporized in a flash so bright it etched itself into my memory like a brand. My feet moved before my brain caught up, running toward the town square. By the time I got there, it was already chaos. People were scattering, some running for the hills, some frozen in place. I found my brother trying to help a kid who'd lost her leg. Blood everywhere, screams that still live in my ears. We didn't have weapons, not real ones, just hunting rifles, tools, farming drones that we tried to reprogram mid-panic. None of it mattered. Their soldiers came next, dropping from the air like insects, armored and silent. No insignias, no spoken commands, just merciless efficiency. They didn't check to see who was armed, didn't ask questions, didn't offer surrender. They just killed. I saw one man run out holding his hands up. No weapon, just tears in his eyes. He never made it 2 steps. Shot through the chest, like he was nothing, like he was garbage on the floor. That's when I knew we weren't under attack. We were being erased. Whatever this empire was, whoever they were, they didn't come for conquest. They came for silence. I dragged my brother into a collapsed greenhouse. He was already losing too much blood. I held him for an hour, maybe more. Watched him slip in and out. Kept pressure on the wound. Promised him we'd make it out. He didn't. He died just before sunset. I didn't cry. There wasn't time. The town was gone by then. Buildings turned to smoldering wreckage. The river ran black with soot. Trees toppled from the shockwaves of their low-flying cruisers. Fires spreading from building to building, left to burn without care. I found a shelter hatch behind a nursery, school. Buried myself in there with what little food I could carry. Stayed underground for 2 days. Listening, waiting. They didn't even search. Why would they? As far as they were concerned, they'd finished the job. No survivors. No signals. No resistance, just another smudge on the galactic map wiped clean. But they were wrong, because when I finally emerged, weak, hungry, half mad with grief, there was still one of us left. Me. And in that moment, looking out at the broken bones of my world, I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt something else. Cold. Clear. Purpose. I walked for days, not because I had a destination. There was nowhere left to go. The colony had been small, 4 towns, 1 shared shuttle port, a few terraformed fields, and a long-range comms station. It wasn't much, but it was home. Now it was just ash. The wind carried the smell of burned wood, metal, and flesh. A smell that clings to your clothes, your skin, your lungs. No matter how deep you breathe, it's always there. A reminder. The sky stayed the same color for weeks. Brown, sickly, dim. Their cruisers had scorched the atmosphere on their way out. I didn't see another soul. Just shadows of people I used to know, outlined in dust on cracked walls. I found the remains of our public square. Just a crater now. No trees, no benches. Just the twisted steel spine of what used to be the bell tower. I sat there one night staring at it. I remember thinking, if I die here, they win. So I didn't die. I started digging. Not graves, not yet. I dug out a comms relay under the old agricultural center, one of the few buildings that hadn't been entirely vaporized. The equipment inside was damaged, but not beyond hope. Took me another week to get power running. I used solar coils from a downed farming drone and pulled a power converter from a wrecked maintenance bot. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. The console came to life with a weak flicker. The signal boosters were fried, but the emergency frequency still had a bit of range, enough to shout into the void. I didn't know who I was calling. I didn't care. I just spoke. This is Colony Epsilon 4. We've been hit. Full planetary wipe, no warning, no survivors, except me. Name's Kalen. Former Scout Tech. Terran Alliance. Decommissioned. I don't know who did this yet, but I'm going to find out. And when I do, tell them I'm not done. I didn't get a reply, didn't expect one. The console sparked out the next day. But that was fine. I'd said what needed to be said. Then I started walking again. Not aimlessly this time. I was looking for pieces. Their tech. Their trash. Anything they'd left behind. And I found it. Half a kilometer outside the crash site of one of their drop shuttles, I found fragments. Singed plating, odd wiring, scorched armor bits. Small things, forgotten things. Things they didn't think I'd know how to use. But I wasn't just a farmer. I used to serve. Years ago. Back when the Terran Alliance still believed in exploration. I was trained in recon, stealth insertion, and survival in hostile environments. I wasn't a soldier, but I'd worked in the shadows. I knew how to build from scraps, and now, with nothing left, I knew what I had to become. That night, I sat under a burned-out archway, sharpening a blade made from enemy hull metal. It sparked with every drag across the stone. My hands bled, my knuckles ached. But I kept going because it wasn't about the weapon, it was about the ritual. About turning grief into action. About burying the part of me that still hoped someone would rescue me. No one was coming. No one was going to make this right. So I would. One piece at a time. They came to erase a people. Now I would erase them. Not with fleets, not with speeches, not with mercy. Just one survivor in the dark. And the fire that they lit the day they took everything from me, they thought they had killed a colony. What they didn't realize was what kind of person they left alive. I wasn't born on Epsilon 4. I chose it. After 10 years in deep recon, mapping dead zones, scouting lost worlds, slipping into places that weren't supposed to exist, I retired, or at least I tried to, settled down, built a home with my wife, raised crops, repaired soil drones, helped rebuild schools. I wanted peace, but I never forgot what I used to be. Didn't forget how to hide in plain sight. Didn't forget how to read enemy patterns. Didn't forget how to disappear. They didn't scan us before the attack. Didn't know I had a hidden cache of survival gear buried under our house. Didn't know about the locked chest that held encrypted blueprints from my time in Black Ops engineering. Didn't know I was trained to outlast. They wiped out everything above ground. But some things were built to last below it. One of the agricultural vaults still had power. Not much, but enough to work with. I spent days scouring the wreckage, collecting what they left behind. Shredded armor, drone cores, a half-functional helmet interface, scorched fragments of their battlefield AI. Piece by piece, I started building. Not for comfort, for war. Their systems were complex, but not encrypted, the way Terran systems were. They were built on speed, not resilience. I cracked the drone firmware first, then their targeting protocols. Eventually, I got one of their scout helmets to display local maps again. Their arrogance was my blueprint. They never expected anyone to reverse engineer them, let alone a lone human on a dead rock. But what they didn't understand is, when you've got nothing left to lose, you'll learn anything. I built cloaking fields using heat dispersal mesh stripped from a ruined hull, reinforced my own makeshift armor with their discarded kinetic plating, wired in a localized EMP burst generator, designed to fry circuits at 10 meters. Crude? Yes. But effective? Very. And once I had the tools, I needed a test. I knew their patrol routes, had studied their drop pattern footprints, watched their ships lift off in a sequence. They always left behind cleanup crews. Not soldiers, engineers, salvagers, robotic assistants, soft targets. I found the nearest cleanup ship 2 days later. It was parked on a ridgeline, scanning for useful material. 3 bioforms on board. 1 outside, operating a drone harvester. No weapons active, no defense field. I waited for nightfall, slipped under their scanners using a shredded emergency blanket laced with deflection mesh. Took the outer one first. Quiet, no sound. They didn't even look surprised, just confused. Like, I wasn't supposed to exist. The other 2 went down seconds later. I used their own blasters. The heat was still in the barrel when I tossed it down the cliff and walked away. No message, no trace, just silence. That was the beginning. After that, I hit another, then another fuel depots, forward recon stations, abandoned survey camps. I studied them, broke them down, and turned every encounter into a lesson. They began to notice, not publicly, but I intercepted one of their encrypted transmissions. It was short, tense. Unconfirmed hostiles in Sector 12G, minimal pattern, possible. Rogue unit. They didn't say my name, didn't know it, but they started to guess. And that was enough for me, because now they were doing what I wanted. Watching shadows, second-guessing blips on their scanners, pulling back into tighter formations, which meant I was getting to them, and I had only just started. They didn't know it yet, but they weren't hunting a ghost, they were being studied. Every weakness they overlooked, every shortcut they took, every oversight born from arrogance. I saw it, and I remembered it, because I wasn't fighting for survival anymore. I was building a legend. They started to whisper, not openly, not through official channels, but in encrypted chatter, low-band fleet transmissions, coded logs only officers could access. Something was moving through their outer sectors, not a fleet, not a rebel cell, just something untraceable, unpredictable, lethal. They didn't know it was just me, and I never gave them a chance to find out. I moved between systems like a virus, slipping aboard civilian transports, hiding in supply crates, drifting in disabled pods to avoid detection. Every place I touched, I left a scar. Supply depots would go silent. Scout ships would disappear. Commanders would wake up to find their data cores scrambled and their guards unconscious. Sometimes I left a body. Sometimes just a message, carved into metal, into walls, into the plating of their own ships. One word, always in their native script. Remember. At first they dismissed it, said it was rogue tech, old enemies with a grudge. A few said it was a Terran PsyOps project left over from the collapse wars, but then I hit a military dockyard. A real one. Not an outpost, not a freighter. Major facility orbiting a Class 2 gas giant, defended, shielded, and monitored by a full combat AI suite. They called it Invictus Prime. I called it an opportunity. I spent 6 weeks studying its patrol patterns, communication cycles, power fluctuations. Then I hit it. Disabled the gravity in the upper ring, locked their docking clamps, and rewired their reactor coolant alarms to overload 2 minutes after their shift change. The explosion lit up the side of the gas giant like a flare. I didn't take trophies, Didn't stick around. I just recorded the last transmission from their AI before it failed. Unrecognized threat. Multiple points of failure. Possible internal actor. Then static. They scrambled after that. Fleets repositioned. Patrols doubled. Civilian traffic rerouted. But it didn't help, because I wasn't attacking them where they were strong. I was attacking who they were, their complacency, their habits, their belief that once they struck fear, no one would ever strike back. But now they were afraid. And worse, they didn't know why. I was becoming something they couldn't define. Not an enemy. Not a resistance. A phantom. One of their admirals once said over a private channel I tapped into, "It's not the losses I fear. It's the silence between them. That's where it lives." And he was right. I didn't need armies, I didn't need politics, I didn't even need revenge anymore. I had become a reminder that no matter how advanced their ships were, no matter how many planets they burned, if they left even one ember behind, it could start a fire. And I burned brighter every time they tried to smother me. I changed my tactics always, never hit the same way twice. Some nights I sabotaged comm relays. Other times I walked into their stations wearing stolen armor, stood, silently, then vanished before anyone knew I was real. I wasn't trying to destroy their empire. I wanted to haunt it, and every time they tried to trace me, I fed them something false. A planted log, a fake ID, a distorted face on a camera feed. They began hunting shadows, interrogating their own, shooting at movement in the dark. They were unraveling themselves, and through it all, I moved like smoke, unseen, uncatchable. They didn't realize it yet, but they were no longer facing a man. They were facing a consequence, and I had only just begun to teach them what it meant to bury the wrong world. It started in hushed conversations between low-level officers. Then it spread to encrypted memos, private council meetings, and war room simulations that always ended the same way. With uncertainty. They called it the Phantom. They didn't know my name or what I looked like, but they knew the aftermath. Shipyard blackouts, missing patrol units, explosions from within. High-ranking officials found dead in rooms that showed no forced entry. Every time they tried to prepare for me, I struck somewhere else. A logistics convoy lost 3 freighters in 1 week. A planetary defense system turned on its own garrison. A war tribunal was hacked mid-session, replaced with footage from Epsilon 4, the planet they erased, burning in silence. No threats, no demands, just a reminder. This is what you did. Now live with it. Their chain of command began to break down. Some commanders quit. Others started operating independently, changing protocols out of fear. Fleet admirals were replaced with AI directors, because they believed machines wouldn't flinch. They were wrong. Even the AI began flagging my patterns as non-predictive, not random, just human in ways they couldn't compute. I wasn't everywhere, but I made them believe I could be. They started sweeping their own ranks, accusing each other of treason, of harboring me, of working with the resistance, which, to be clear, didn't exist. I had no allies, no cells, no secret rebellion, just memory, and time, and the willingness to bleed until the job was done. And you. One intercepted message I heard a general say, "We should have glassed that world to its core. We left behind a ghost and now the whole fleet's looking over its shoulder." They were starting to understand, not who I was, but what I'd become. Fear wasn't my weapon. It was their infection. Their captains started locking themselves in command towers. Officers wore sidearms inside their own bunkers. Whole battalions relocated from strategic outposts because the Phantom had been sighted nearby. Most of the time I hadn't even been there. They were doing my work for me, and still, I pushed harder. I began responding to their messages, not with a voice, with truth. Intercept a distress signal. I'd send them coordinates to their own crimes, scramble a strike team. I'd leak their formation to civilian channels, track a survivor from one of my strikes. I'd send a list of every ship that participated in the massacre of my colony. Names, ranks, logs, and actions. I wasn't erasing their empire. I was forcing it to see itself, one bloodied mirror at a time. And as their fear grew, so did their legend. Some began to worship me, others to curse me. They still didn't know my name, but they knew what I left behind. Burned insignias, sabotaged weapons, and the word etched into walls and corridors, written in their own language. Remember. That was all I wanted, because vengeance fades. But memory becomes law. Fear was never the goal. It was just the side effect. What I really wanted was leverage. Their empire ran on power, systems, codes, hierarchies. They believed in scale, not subtlety. The bigger the fleet, the louder the message. The more automated the weapons, the less they needed to think. So I gave them something to think about. I broke into their databases, not through firewalls, through trust, stolen credentials, forgotten backdoors, ancient clearance codes buried under decades of upgrades. They thought they were secure. They weren't. The more I studied them, the more I realized they didn't fear being attacked. They feared being understood, and I understood them. I learned how their ships spoke to each other, how their fleets aligned during warp cycles, how their officers made decisions when communication broke down. And then I used all of it, hijacked a patrol fleet's comms, made them believe one of their stations was under internal siege. They turned on each other before I even got there. Rewired a logistics hub to reroute munitions to a ghost depot. I'd fabricated in their own systems. They sent 6 full cargo haulers to resupply an outpost that didn't exist. By the time they realized the mistake, I'd taken every round, every battery, every fuel cell, and I never fired a shot. Because the more they tried to strengthen their grip, the more cracks I found in their foundation. I started wearing their armor, walking into their halls, learning how to blend. I wasn't invisible. I didn't need to be. I was familiar, just another officer in a long hallway, another technician in a helmet. They never saw me coming, because they didn't look. They trusted structure. I used that structure like a blade. I'd enter one of their communications towers, reroute the internal comm logs, leave every door unlocked, and vanish before the first security drone even noticed. And when they found the aftermath, when they replayed the security footage, they saw nothing but silence. No face, no name, just an empty hallway, a power flicker, and a message scrawled on the wall in maintenance ink. You built this. I'm just using it. I never needed more than one tool at a time. Sometimes just a wrench, sometimes just a glitch. I once shut down a carrier's internal oxygen cycling system by uploading a corrupted lunch menu to its hospitality module. They evacuated the ship in panic. One man, one line of code, one forgotten weakness. And yet they still called me a myth. Still thought I had help. That was their mistake. They couldn't imagine someone fighting without orders, without backup, without a plan for the end. But I didn't need a plan. I just needed them to keep using the tools they thought made them strong. Because every system they relied on, every button, every screen, every breath of false security was now mine. It had been nearly 2 years since Epsilon 4 burned, 2 years since they left my home in ruins and assumed they'd ended a people. But I was still here. Not as a ghost, not as a myth, as proof. And I was done hiding. I chose my target. Carefully. Not their capital. Not their high command. Those places were locked down, armored, layered with defenses built for fleets and invasions. But they weren't built for me. I picked their communications nexus, the heart of their galactic propaganda network. A ringed station the size of a city, orbiting a dwarf star, broadcasting their lies to 1,000 systems at once. I didn't want to blow it up. I wanted to take it over, not to silence them, to make them listen. I infiltrated through a transport, wing disguised as internal system maintenance. I wore their badge, walked their corridors, ate in their mess hall. No one noticed. They didn't see one man with haunted eyes and steady hands. They saw a uniform, By the time they realized something was wrong, I was in the main signal relay chamber, tied into every uplink, every audio feed, every holographic stream. I didn't need weapons. I had their attention, and I gave them the one thing they never expected. Truth. I played footage from Epsilon 4. The sky splitting open. The fires, the screams, the silence afterward. Then I spoke. This is what you did. You called it peacekeeping. You called it a routine cleansing. You called it necessary. You called it done. You were wrong. Across thousands of worlds, people heard my voice. Some looked away, some couldn't, some wept, and for the first time their empire had to look at itself, not as victors, but as executioners. I didn't make demands, I didn't ask for surrender. I just showed them what I'd seen, what they'd done, and who was still out there. And then I left. Walked out the same way I came in. The guards never even reached the chamber in time, because I didn't want to kill anyone that day. Not with bullets, just with memory. Before I disappeared, I lit a timed charge deep inside the station's lower tier. It didn't destroy the Nexus, but it erased every archive of their internal footage, so the only record left was mine. From that day forward, I was no longer just a whisper in the dark. I was a voice. The voice of a world they tried to forget. And now, no matter how far they run, no matter how strong they pretend to be, they'll never forget what I said. I don't know what day it is anymore. I haven't seen a calendar in years. Don't need one. The stars are all I follow now. The hum of enemy circuits. The cold silence between systems. That's my clock. And I'm still out here. They tightened their borders, built new security protocols, hired mercenaries, deployed AI, rewrote entire playbooks, but it didn't stop me. Because you can't stop what doesn't want glory, what doesn't want recognition, what doesn't want peace. I never asked for justice. I just wanted them to remember, and they do. Every new officer studies footage of what I did on the Nexus. Every recruit hears the warnings. Don't go dark alone. Check your scanners twice. Don't trust the silence. They've built their empire stronger than ever. But you know what that means? More wires to cut. They scan empty hangars now, looking for ghosts. Deploy drones to follow shadows that don't exist. They set traps for someone they can't see because deep down they know, if you burn a world, if you leave nothing but ash and one broken body behind, you didn't end anything. You just created something worse. You created me. I don't need a name anymore. I don't carry insignias. I don't fly flags. I don't stand for anyone but the voices in the dirt where Epsilon 4 used to be. But when they hear that word, etched in bulkheads, burned into consoles, whispered through static, they stop, they listen, they remember. Because I am not a survivor anymore. I am the price, and I'm still collecting.